Hey, Fran, good to see you, bud.
I didn't get the memo on ice cream.
We didn't either.
We didn't.
Boss came in here with ice cream, so hell, we eat on air.
Yeah, so we're eating a SpongeBob. What are you wearing? It's not a hoodie, is it? Is it a sweatshirt?
No, got a graphic tee. Just resting my eyes, guys. Just resting my eyes.
Oh,
That's a good one.
That's prime. That's
Boy,
prime
that is-
40-plus-year-old right
That is
there.
old man stuff right there.
Oh, yeah.
I like that. I don't feel like you're old enough for that shirt, but you could be one day.
Surprising.
We got people in the chat asking what is the most likely thing that the Cowboys are going to do at 12. We got Georgia's Pro Day going on. We got all sorts of draft stuff happening. And Fran Duffy, of course, is a member of All City. You can catch him on PHLY. You can catch him on here every Wednesday at 11:30. And his draft stuff is absolutely incredible. It's a great time to sign up to be a diehard. AllDLLS.com/diehard. $36. Oh, my God, what a deal. And you get access to all his draft stuff. At 12 right now, Fran, give it to me. Give me a name or two that you love for the Cowboys.
So we talked about my mock draft that I dropped last week. I gave them Tyler Booker, the guard from Alabama. I just think that when you're looking at just trying to reassert, I know they went and they signed Robert Jones this week, but I don't know if Robert Jones is keeping you from Tyler Booker. So I think when you look at a player that has the physicality, that I think that he matches the ethos of the players that Will McClay has targeted early in drafts. Putting him alongside Tyler Smith and Cooper Beebe, and we'll see what else they can get from these guys. Obviously, look, putting him next to Terrence Steele would be a lot of fun on that right side. If you want to talk about just getting that run game back on track, building a nice pocket for Dak Prescott, adding a player like Tyler Booker would go a long way towards doing that. It would be a best player available type of selection, but I think when you're looking at it, that's not something that the Cowboys have been afraid of doing in the past. And Jeff, I know you and I have talked about this in the past too, that they like to be the first in on a position to kind of start the run, right? And when you talk about this draft, it starts to dry up at certain positions. That interior offensive lineman run is going to start. Well, maybe they get the ball rolling there with Tyler Booker.
Fran, you know this. One thing that you never want to do is go into the draft being like, I got to fill this need in the first round. Well, Cowboys lost a nickel corner in Jourdan Lewis, who I think a lot of us were etching him back into the fold. He's gone, signs a big deal in Jacksonville. Jourdan Barron is a guy that kind of makes sense in terms of potentially fitting and staying in the state of Texas. What do you think about the possibility of even the Cowboys taking him as high as 12?
Yeah, I think that, when you look at some of the things that Matt Eberflus has prioritized in previous stops, and look, this is maybe less of a thing at nickel corner, but he has been big in terms of like position prototypes and arm length being big for him on defense. And that is one of the big knocks on Jourdan Barron is the body type. He's got under 30-inch arms. He's more of a compact corner. He to me, excels more in underneath zone coverage as opposed to man-to-man. Worries me a little bit if you're going to play with him in single coverage or with a two-way go against a receiver on the inside. I'm worried a little bit about his ability to hold up there. I will admit, though, I am definitely low, man, when it comes to Jourdan Barron in terms of his projection to the NFL. I'm a little bit lower on him than most in the business, but that always gives me the heebie-jeebies too, because I'm like, all right, like, I need to do a little bit more work. I've been watching him for 3 years. I've had 6 or 7 different pass-throughs on his film, but he's a player I want to continue to watch here in the lead up to the draft.
So just because we're talking corner, Michigan's Will Johnson, and going back and continuing to look at guys, I know that there's going to be questions about, he might never run a 40, and, he didn't have the best film, and he got hurt this year. And just looking at his totality of that dude, I'll take him at 12 in a heartbeat. How are you with Will Johnson as a corner at 12?
Yeah, to me, that's the area where I'm starting to really think about Will Johnson. He going into the season, people were billing him as like a top 5 pick, a top 6, top 7 type of selection, and I didn't quite see that. I didn't see a Patrick Surtain, Jalen Ramsey quality of corner, right? But I think when you're looking at getting into the teens, that's where I always kind of felt a little bit more comfortable taking a player of his caliber. I do think that he can be a really good starter. There's a lot to like there when you talk about a guy that can play off coverage, read routes, break on throws, and take the ball away. I think Will Johnson's got that. There are some areas of his game that are a little bit concerning. You mentioned the recovery speed. I never really had a huge issue there. Some people have I think he's shown flashes of being able to turn and run. There are other corners in this draft where that's a little bit more of a concern to me, but I think when you're watching Will Johnson, the bigger one for me is just, and this is very important for me, is like the competitiveness downhill and being able to make plays as a run defender, as a tackler, screen game, RPO game, everything you're going to see in
Fran,
today's
you don't
NFL.
think that trying to tackle with a cut block is the best way to do it every time?
No, that's probably not the best approach, in today's NFL. Now, does that mean I don't want to take him at 12? No, but that's one of the separating factors for me when comparing him to some of the other top corners, in this class. So I will say, like, the one thing that has always been, because you mentioned like, oh, he got hurt this year, and there has been some consternation amongst scouts, amongst people in the industry about, oh, like, could he have come back? Did he mail it in because Michigan didn't do well? Like, anyone I've talked to in that Michigan building, whether it's staff members, players, anybody, scouts that have been through, they all just speak very highly of his character, his work ethic, his love for the game. And so, maybe look, that decision, you kind of put that on an island. Maybe he could have come back. Maybe he couldn't have. But I think big picture, projecting him forward, all the signs that look forward to him in the NFL, the people I've talked to, all paint him in a very positive light.
Well, where they paid in T-Mac, Ted McMillan. I mean, there's so much talk. So many people have mocked him to the Cowboys. Certainly, we've talked many times about them needing a partner for CeeDee Lamb. Where do you have those receivers that certainly did my guy from Texas, Golden, jump up and pass T-Mac? But certainly, Cowboy fans are crazy about T-Mac. What's your evaluation of him?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at T-Mac, I mean, he is certainly one of those players where he's going to be outside the numbers or inside, wherever you're going to place him. He's going to win with his play strength. He's got some savvy to him as a route runner. I do think that he got a little bit better there from sophomore year to his junior year. But this is a guy that's going to win with size. He's going to win at the catch point. He rarely puts the ball on the ground. He's just not, he doesn't project to have a ton of juice in the NFL, right? He's not going to create big plays with the ball in his hands. He's not going to be a consistent vertical threat. Could he be what T. Higgins has been? I personally felt like T. Higgins had a little bit more juice, coming out of Clemson. He was a high second-round pick. We're obviously talking about Tetairoa McMillan in a different part of the draft, but that's why he's drawn some comparisons to like Drake London when London was coming out of USC. London ended up going in the top 10, and he's been a solid number one. Obviously not one of the top receivers in football, but I think that's look. If you're going to take T-Mac and you're going to pair him with CeeDee Lamb, and you say, all right, well, CeeDee Lamb's going to be the alpha dog. I like that pairing, and I don't think that would be the worst use of resource there at 12.
Fran, staying along the lines of receiver, give me your best route running receiver, if not at 12, in the second round, that will fit for the Cowboys, just from the pure route running stance.
Yeah, I think if you're talking with amongst the round one potential type players, I think Matthew Golden is the guy that comes to mind. The guy from Texas that we referenced earlier. I think when you talk about his route running chops, that does stand out. I think it's not quite to the level of, because people have compared him to like a Chris Olave. I think that Olave was really sharp as a route runner. That's why he went as high as he did. I mean, he was really explosive, like what Golden showed at the combine. But to me, I think that Golden is more of like a lowercase Chris Olave, the Coke version. I think Emeka Ebuka from Ohio State, he's got some route running chops. Doesn't quite have the athletic upside of some of these others, but I think he could be a rock solid player. And then I think if you're getting into, Jesse, that day two range, into that round two range, the guys that probably stand out most would be Jalen Noel from Iowa State, and then Jack Betch from TCU. Those would be the guys that, to me, and they come in different body types. Noel is probably more of your prototypical slot type in terms of the way that he's built, whereas Betch is more of the bigger possession player, but both guys have route running chops in their own way.
Do you think that in today's NFL, because you have your best player is going to be your move guy a lot. He's going to line up in the slot a lot. So when you see a slot only guy, do you think that in today's NFL that means you shouldn't draft them too high to pair them with, CeeDee's going to play there some? Or do you think with being able to bunch and moving people around that you're just looking for the best players? And I'm going to ask a 7-part question because also I want to know if you have a guy at receiver. Because one of the guys you didn't name that I love as a route runner is Xavier Restrepo at Miami. And I think I love him more than anybody in the world. So do you have any guys that are your guys? And how does it work? Because like Jalen Noel at Iowa State, awesome route runner. Probably kind of slot only. Does that fit when the best players tend to play the slot a lot?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think when you're looking at it's going to come down to team by team. And does your offensive game plan or does your offensive staff feel like, hey, you know what? Even if these guys are better off being protected in the slot and want to keep them off a jam, are we going to play with more condensed splits? Are we going to be able to hide him a little bit more? Are we going to put him in motion more? So all of those things start to come into play there when you're having that discussion of trying to fit a Xavier Restrepo with a CeeDee Lamb. Because I do view Restrepo as more of your, like, he's your prototypical traditional, like, underneath possession slot receiver, right? Like, he's going to separate as well as anybody, but he's not going to separate more than 15 yards down the field. He's going to do all of your quick slants, your pivot routes, your out routes underneath, and he's going to excel. He's going to thrive in that kind of a role. And I think when you're looking at trying to put him in with a CeeDee Lamb, it's just the understanding of, okay, well, if CeeDee slides inside, does that mean Restrepo is probably off the field? Or are we okay with saying we're going to play a little bit more condensed? That becomes now a question for Shoddy and for for that entire coaching staff to say, like, all right, well, how do we envision using these guys in tandem?
Fran, we got about 90 seconds, but I want to throw a question for you, put you on the spot. Every year there's a curveball that kind of happens in the first round, right? And this year it's kind of a weird draft in terms of elite players, and I don't know, things might happen. As of right now, we're kind of 2 days into free agency. What is your top 12 curveball that is kind of formulating in your mind of what could potentially happen?
And what's happening to your right?
Yeah, so my dog is just going ham on. It's just like you guys were going nuts on that ice cream when I jumped on her. She's going ham on one of her squeak toys that she was able to find in the room. So he's going nuts next to me. I don't know how much of that is coming through the mic, but no. So Joe, I think going back to what surprise could happen in the top 12. I think it really comes down to because when you get into surprises in that first half of the mock or of the draft, it really is determined by what happens in the first, like, 5, 6, 7 picks. Does one quarterback go, or do two quarterbacks go, right? Mm-hmm. And so if there's that big run, you go back to last year, the big surprise was Michael Penix Jr. You had all those quarterbacks start to go, and it's like, all right, well, now that upped the urgency. So now, all right, well, now Penix, he's off the board, right? And so I think when you look at it, to me, I look at it and I think, where does Ashton Jeanty go? Does Ashton Jeanty go number 6 to the Las Vegas Raiders? If he goes to the Raiders, does that up the urgency and now a team surprises and take another one? Kind of like what happened with Jahmyr Gibbs, and another one goes earlier than expected. I agree in that this is a year where we probably get one of those surprises where a guy that we're talking about as a late 1, early 2 sneaks into the top 15 just because of the ambiguity at the top. But it's going to be a fun one to track.
Fran Duffy, we will talk to you again next Wednesday at 11:30. Thank you, sir.
I'll be here. Looking forward to it, guys.
We all silly like the mayor.